My name's Kelsey. I work as an ER receptionist in Fargo. I'm the person who checks you in, prints your wristband, and tries to keep the waiting room calm when everything else is falling apart. So, I'm not easily shaken by strange behavior. That night taught me there's a difference between strange and calculated. It was 3:40 a.m. when I pulled my car over, hunched forward with my hands resting on the steering wheel, watching the snow erase the road in front of me. The heater was running, but barely, and the windshield wipers were losing the fight. Every sweep revealed streetlights and curbs for half a second before the storm swallowed them again. I wasn't stranded. I was choosing not to move. I'd already watched one car slide through an intersection earlier, slow and helpless, like physics had simply decided to take over. I wasn't going to test my luck doing the same. So I did what I tell patients and families to do all the time. Don't panic, don't rush, find somewhere safe and wait. A closed pharmacy sat a few blocks ahead, its signs still lit, the parking lot mostly clear. I pulled in, parked near the front windows, and turned my headlights toward the entrance. It wasn't perfect, but it was visible. That mattered. Inside the car, I texted a coworker just to ground myself. Pulled over. Blizzard's bad. Waiting it out. No reply. Normal for that hour. The snow muted everything. Even the wind sounded distant. Then movement crossed the edge of my headlights. At first, I thought it was drifting snow. Then the shape steadied and separated itself from the storm. A person stepped forward from the side of the building. He walked straight toward my car, in a clean, direct line. He stopped at my driver's side window and knocked, like he expected me to answer. I cracked the window just enough to hear him, keeping my hand on the lock. "What's going on?" I asked. "Hey," he said, "I'm freezing. Can you let me warm up for a second?" "Step into the light," I said. "I'm right here. I need to see you better." He didn't move, just smiled a little, like I was the one being unreasonable. "I'm not trying anything," he said. "I'm just cold." People who are actually cold don't stand still. They shuffle. They hug themselves. They look desperate. He wasn't doing any of that. "Show me your hands," I said. "They're cold, but you're not showing them." "I don't have anything," he said, still calm. I looked past him, checking the perimeter of the lot. Snow swept through my headlights, hiding and revealing the ground in waves. "I can call 911 for you," I said, "or an ambulance." "No," he said quickly. "No cops." That settled it. He leaned closer to the window gap. "Just crack the door. I'll stand right here." "No," I said. He moved sideways, just enough to stay out of the brightest light and block my view behind him. For half a second, my defroster cleared the windshield enough for me to see past him. There was another shape near the far snowbank, low and hard to separate from the storm, but wrong in a way my brain immediately flagged. When I looked again, it was gone. The man at my window looked at me, like he noticed my eyes move. "What?" he asked. "Nothing." He smiled again. "You don't have to be weird about this. I'm not dangerous." People who aren't dangerous don't need to say that. I rolled my window all the way up slowly, so he could see I meant it. Then I hit the lock, even though it was already locked. He knocked again, harder. I stared straight ahead. Then I heard the door handle. He looked at it like he was surprised that it hadn't worked. "Don't be like that," he said. I turned the key. The engine coughed. My heart stopped for a second, then started. The headlights brightened. The car felt alive again. "You're just gonna leave me?" he asked. I didn't answer. I put the car in drive. The tires spun in the slush. The car rocked. For a moment, I was stuck. He stepped closer and raised one hand, like he wanted me to wonder what I couldn't see. I hit the horn. The sound ripped through the quiet lot, way too loud for that hour. He flinched. The tires caught. The car lurched forward. His hand slapped the window as I passed him. In the mirror, I saw him standing there watching me go. I didn't stop until I reached a main road with other lights, other buildings, other people. Even then, I kept checking my mirrors. When I finally got home, I sat in my driveway with the car running, staring at my front door like it didn't belong to me. The next day, a nurse mentioned a report. people targeting drivers who shelter in parking lots during storms, testing boundaries, waiting for guilt to do the work. And I keep thinking about how he never stepped into the light, how he tested the handle like it was step 2 of something planned, and how for just a second I wasn't sure if he was alone, just the one sent forward to knock. My name's Aaron, and in the winter of 2022, I was driving through Wyoming during a storm that kept getting worse, no matter how many forecasts promised it wouldn't. This happened outside Cheyenne, at a roadside motel I only stopped at because the interstate was shutting down behind me. I've stayed in dozens of places like it. Flickering sign, thin walls, heat that works when it feels like it. Nothing about it stood out until I woke up in the middle of the night and realized my room had been touched while I slept. The first thing I noticed wasn't a sound, it was the silence. The heater wasn't cycling like it had been before. I opened my eyes and saw the bathroom light glowing through the half-open door. I knew I'd turned it off. I sat up slowly, letting my brain catch up. Travel nurse exhaustion messes with you. Long shifts, long drives, unfamiliar rooms. You wake up disoriented sometimes. That's normal. So I checked my usual things. Phone charging right where I left it. Keys on the nightstand. Then I looked at my duffel bag. I always wedge it against the door when I stay alone. I remembered setting it flat so it would catch the door if someone tried to open it. Now it was in a different position, like it had been nudged and set back quickly. I stood and put my hand on the door handle. It didn't move. The locks were still engaged. I listened. Nothing in the hallway. No voices, no TV noise. Just wind pushing snow against the building. I told myself I'd done it half asleep. Told myself not to spiral over a shifted bag. But one thought stuck. If it wasn't me, how did anything change without the locks changing? I didn't sleep much after that. By morning, the motel looked buried. Snow covered the parking lot up to the tires. Only one other car sat across the way, frosted over. Hard to tell if anyone had even driven it recently. The front desk clerk looked barely awake when I asked about the roads. Probably another day, he said. Another night. I went back to the room and tried to act normal. Shower, coffee, scrolling my phone. But I kept looking at the door like it might move on its own. That night, I reinforced everything. Chair jammed under the handle. Suitcase pushed tight against it. Towel rolled under the door. Shoes placed by the bed so I could stand fast. Phone fully charged. I even tied the zipper of my duffel to the chair leg so it would make noise if the door moved. Then I fell asleep. Sometime after midnight, I woke to a sound so small it barely registered. A soft click. I opened my eyes and stared into the dark. The bathroom light was off this time. The heater hummed quietly. The room felt normal, except for the door. I saw a shadow passing under the door, just a brief dimming of the thin hallway light. Someone close enough to block it, then gone. I sat up slowly. Everything I'd set up was still in place. Chair tight, bag wedged, towel unmoved. But I knew someone had been there. I didn't call the front desk. I didn't want to be brushed off, so I stayed awake until morning, listening. That's when I found the scrape. On the metal plate near the latch was a fresh, bright mark through the dull paint. Like something flat had been slid between the latch and the frame. I stared at it. I'd seen that trick before. Thin tools used to bypass latches without touching the deadbolt. I went to the front desk and asked if anyone had accessed a master key overnight. The clerk blinked, confused. No. Which rooms are occupied? I asked. Not many. No reassurance. No offer to move rooms. Just that vague answer. The storm worsened again that night. Leaving wasn't safe. Staying didn't feel safe either. I kept the TV low, not watching it, just letting the noise fill the room. I sat on the edge of the bed fully dressed, shoes on, phone in hand. Around 2 a.m., the chain went taut. Someone pulled the door inward and met resistance. Then a voice, low and close to the door. It's okay. It sounded calm, reassuring, like I was supposed to relax. I didn't answer. I dialed the front desk and raised my voice on purpose. "I'm calling the police right now," I said loudly before anyone picked up. "Someone's at my door." The clerk answered groggily, but I kept going like I was already on another call. "If you're out there," I said, "you need to leave. Now." Silence. Then fast footsteps retreating down the hallway, a door closing hard somewhere nearby. I didn't sleep after that. When police arrived in the morning, they didn't find a person. One officer checked a housekeeping cart parked near the stairs and pulled out a thin metal tool. "This isn't listed," he said. "It's missing from the kit." The motel manager offered a refund and looked irritated, like the situation was inconvenient. I checked out as soon as plows cleared the lot. As I loaded my car, I noticed a sedan idling across the parking lot. With the windows fogged and the engine running, the driver's head turned when I moved. Not hiding, just watching. I got in my car and left without looking back. And I don't tell myself it's nothing anymore just because I can't prove it yet. The snow looked like TV static, thick, white, and nonstop, so dense it swallowed the parking lot lights. I was standing at the front doors when my phone glowed in my hand. Blizzard warning, all caps. Under it, the last district alert. Buses canceled, travel discouraged, shelter in place if necessary. It had come through minutes ago. I was 24, subbing at an elementary school on the south side of Sioux Falls. I'd been there all week, covering for a second-grade teacher. I wasn't scared of being stuck at school. I was scared when I realized I wasn't alone. That morning had started normal. Snow, yes, but in South Dakota, that doesn't mean panic. Kids came in bundled up, boots squeaking everywhere. Teachers joked about it. By lunchtime, though, everyone was checking their phones more than the clock. Early release was announced just after noon. Parents rushed in. Office staff called names. Kids were pulled into coats and backpacks, like it was an evacuation. By 2 o'clock, the halls were empty in that weird way schools get after dismissal. You could hear the building itself, heat clicking on, the vents, the wind hitting the walls. I should have left with everyone else. But subs do this thing where we try to be extra responsible, like we're proving something. I stayed to straighten desks, write notes, make sure nothing was misplaced. I told myself I'd be out in 20 minutes. I even texted my friend Kendra, leaving soon. Roads look bad. Then the storm turned serious. The windows went white. The wind started slamming the side of the building so hard that I felt it through the floor. I grabbed my bag and headed to the front office, still thinking I'd just creep home carefully. The building lights were already dimmed to after-hours mode. Standing there, I remember thinking how big the school felt without kids in it. Then my phone rang. It was the assistant principal. "Where are you?" "Front office. I'm about to leave." A pause. Then, "You can't. Roads are closed. Visibility's gone. Do not drive. Shelter in place. Anyone still in buildings needs to stay put." I laughed out of reflex, like my brain needed a second to catch up. "Okay, so stay inside?" "Yes. Lock the doors. Someone will check on you when it's safe." "Are you alone?" "I think so," I said, and immediately wished I hadn't answered so quickly. She told me to keep my phone charged, to call if anything felt off. That detail stayed in my head. After we hung up, I stood there listening. The storm and the building sounded like they were arguing. Then I heard the chair. A slow scrape. The sound of a chair leg dragging across the floor, coming from somewhere down the hall past the cafeteria. I didn't move at first. I actually looked down at my feet, like maybe I'd caused it. But I was standing in the middle of the lobby. Nothing near me. I told myself it was pipes. Vents. Pressure from the storm. Schools make noise. Old buildings shift. Still, I gripped the key ring harder and stepped toward the hallway. "Hello?" I called. No answer. I started doing what I always do when I'm nervous, turning fear into tasks. Check the obvious places. Make a plan. Staff bathroom first. Empty. Teacher's lounge. Empty. Coffee pot off. someone's sweater on a hook. Cafeteria, those long tables folded up, the room too quiet. I stood there listening, just the storm and distant machinery. I was starting to feel embarrassed, like I'd scared myself. Then I noticed a side door near the cafeteria, the one that leads toward the gym wing and a back stairwell. I was almost positive it had been fully shut earlier. Now it wasn't. Well, it was closed, but the latch wasn't seated. Just enough of a gap to notice. Maybe the custodian. Maybe pressure from the wind. Maybe it just didn't catch. I pushed it open and looked down the dark corridor beyond. The air felt colder back there. I didn't step through. I just closed the door and made sure it clicked. That's when the lights flickered. Not out. Just a dip. Enough to change how the building sounded afterward. Quieter. Like it had stopped pretending it was daytime. On the way back to the front, I noticed things I hadn't before. A vending machine light glowing in a hallway that should have been dark. A coat rack near the art room. A classroom door pulled almost shut, leaving a thin line of darkness. I told myself kids leave doors like that all the time, except the kids had left hours ago. I sat behind the receptionist desk and plugged my phone in. 14%. I called Kendra, straight to voicemail. I left a message pretending everything was fine, but I could hear myself straining. I'm stuck at the school. Roads are closed. I'm okay. Just call me back. While the call rang, I heard something again. Footsteps. I stood and leaned into the hallway. Hello? Is someone here? Silence. Then another step, almost like it was answering me. I moved forward. The sound stopped. I stopped. After a beat, it came back. That's when I chose the office, just because it had a lock. As I turned back, I saw movement at the far end of the hall. A silhouette crossed quickly into the darker gym wing. Only a second, but enough. I walked faster, still trying to act normal, even alone. My phone was still connected to voicemail when the screen went black. Dead. I shut off the office lights and crouched behind the counter. The lobby was dim except for exit signs and the storm-muted glow outside. Then came the knock. Not on the door, on the wall beside it. Footsteps followed. The office door handle moved, twice. Thank God it held. After a pause, the handle moved harder. The door rattled. Then nothing. I stayed there until the sound of plows woke me. Gray light filled the windows. My legs barely worked when I stood. Police swept the building. Found nothing. The officer used that word clear, like it meant something. The custodian noticed something later. A back stairwell window cracked open. Snow tracked on the steps, wet footprints that didn't match my boots. They shrugged. Storm. Could have been anyone. That afternoon, I went back to grab my bag. In a staff bathroom I hadn't used, there was a fresh gas station coffee cup in the trash, still damp at the bottom. I stared at it for a long time. Now, I don't stay late in empty buildings when it's snowing. I'm 28, and in February of 2022, I was working nights as a warehouse supervisor outside Rock Springs, Wyoming. I'm not jumpy. I'm a procedure guy. If something's wrong, there's usually a reason. And if there isn't, you keep checking until you find one. It was just after 2 a.m. A blizzard was hammering the building, the kind that turns everything outside into white noise. Inside, though, the warehouse felt sealed off from the world. Warm. Concrete floors, steel racks, and heaters. I was in the office watching security feeds, killing time with inventory logs and dock schedules. The cameras were grainy because of the snow, but nothing looked off. Until one emergency light flicked on in the far loading section. Just one. One single emergency light, bright and clean, lighting a small patch of floor like a spotlight. I leaned forward. Emergency lights don't come on randomly. They're tied to outages, not vibes. I checked the electrical panel. Everything read normal. No surge, no dip, no alarms. I flipped back to the camera feed. The light stayed on. The rest of the section remained dim like usual. I tried to reason it out. Bad ballast, aging fixture, but emergency lights aren't built that way. Different circuit, different rules. I grabbed my radio. Anyone still on the floor? I asked. Then a broken reply from the guard shack outside. Just you. Storm's bad. Right. Just me. I pulled on my gloves and walked out of the office. I remember my boots echoed off the concrete. As I got closer to the loading bays, the air cooled. Then I saw the side door. It was open an inch. A thin black line ran along the edge where it should have been flush. I'd checked that door 1,000 times. It didn't sit like that unless someone left it that way. I stepped closer and cracked it open enough to look outside. Snow blew in immediately, tracing a narrow line along the floor. Then I looked down. Footprints. Fresh, clean steps, leading straight toward the door from the perimeter fence. I stepped under the dock overhang where the wind wasn't ripping everything apart and followed the prints with my eyes. They stopped at the door. There were no footprints going back. I walked a few feet to the side, thinking maybe the wind erased the exit trail unevenly. But the incoming prints were still crisp. If wind had taken the rest, these should have softened too. They hadn't. I shut the door hard and threw the latch, testing it twice. I raised my radio again. Dispatch, you copy? Nothing. Guard shack, anyone been out near base 6? No, came the delayed reply. Just you. I stood there, listening. The emergency lights still glowed behind me, washing the floor in white. That's when I heard a sound deeper inside the warehouse. A single metal bump. Heavy, like something large had been nudged. I turned fast. The housing was intact, no damage. I stepped back. Somewhere between the racks, I heard a step. I backed toward the office, focused on not tripping over myself. My awareness narrowed to aisle gaps, blind corners, places cameras didn't cover because the system was old and cheap. When I reached the office, I kept talking out loud. All right, cameras, we're fine. The feeds were worse now. Snow interference bloomed across the screens. The emergency light showed up as a white flare, washing out everything around it. On another camera, I saw movement. A shadow moving low behind a pallet stack, gone too fast to track. I leaned closer, trying to convince myself it was compression noise. Then the radio finally came through. Dispatch, delayed and distorted. Copy, say again. I reported the unlatched door, the footprints, possible trespasser. Units will respond when safe, they said. Weather's slowing everything. Stay put. So I did. I watched the cameras and listened to the building. When police finally arrived, the warehouse felt insultingly normal again. They swept the place, found no one and no damage. The next night, I checked the snow outside again. The storm had erased most of it. But under the dock ramp, tucked where the wind hadn't reached, there was one partial footprint. Just the front half of a boot. Like someone had stood there a while. Waiting. My name's Marisa. I'm 31 now, and I make most of my money shooting outdoor stuff for small brands. Jackets, boots, backpacks, that kind of thing. This happened to me near Lake Tahoe in the winter of 2018, on a day I still can't talk about without hearing my own name the way it sounded out there. When the storm got loud, I started trusting sound more than sight. That's what messed me up. Snow had swallowed everything. The trail, the horizon, even the difference between ground and sky. Trees were just darker shapes, and my footprints filled in behind me so fast it felt like the mountain was erasing me in real time. So when I heard my name, clear and close, like someone standing a few feet away, I believed it instantly. Marisa? It wasn't shouted. It wasn't frantic. It sounded normal. Casual. The way someone calls you when you've stepped into the wrong room. I turned so fast that my camera swung into my ribs. I scanned the white space between the trees, waiting for a jacket, a face, any movement. There was nothing. I'd been out there for winter photos. I knew the area. I'd shot around Tahoe plenty of times before. I wasn't reckless. I had boots, layers, gloves, a headlamp, water, snacks, even an emergency blanket I'd never used. And I had my car less than a mile away. That's what made me push for one last angle. The light had been perfect earlier. Soft gray, snow clinging to branches just right. I'd already gotten shots I liked, but then I noticed a slope further down where the trees opened up. It looked cleaner, more dramatic. So I went for it. The snow picked up while I was adjusting my settings. It didn't feel sudden, just heavier, wind cutting sideways and pellets tapping my jacket. When I finished, I turned back toward where I thought the trail was. It wasn't there. Gone. The snow had erased it completely, like it had never existed. I stood still, trying to line things up in my head. I pulled out my phone. No service, like usual. The map loaded halfway, then spun. Battery at 12%. Dropped to 11 while I watched. I tucked it back inside my jacket to keep it warm. Then I heard it again. "Hey, over here." A man's voice this time. It seemed like he was standing just beyond my line of sight. I turned toward it. Nothing. Then again, "Marisa?" I laughed out loud because it didn't make sense, because my brain didn't know where to put it. "Hello?" I called back. No answer, just my name again, from a different direction. That's when I noticed something was wrong with the sound itself. It didn't echo. It didn't drift with the wind. It didn't get swallowed by the snow. It landed, like it was being placed exactly where I'd hear it best. I took a few steps toward it, then stopped when it came from behind me. "Marisa?" I answered again, which still makes me mad at myself. "I'm here," I said. "Are you okay?" I'd been trained my whole life to respond to calls for help. You hear someone in the cold, you don't assume danger. You assume need. But the voice never sounded like it needed help. It sounded patient. I stopped responding and backed toward a cluster of trees, something solid to put at my back. The wind was brutal out in the open. At least there, I could crouch and listen. For a moment, there was only snow and wind and my own breathing inside my scarf. Then, "I can see you." Closer this time. Not right next to me, but close enough that I felt it in my skin. I gripped my camera with both hands, even though it was useless for anything except weight. I stayed low, watching the gaps between the trees. A shape moved through one of them. It was clear, just darker than the snow. Too intentional to be a branch, too close to ignore. It crossed one gap, then another, and disappeared. What scared me most was that it didn't rush me. It didn't need to. It had time. That's when it hit me. If I ran in the wrong direction, I'd run myself deeper into nothing, into woods, into a place where no one would look until spring. And if I ran toward the voice, I'd be doing exactly what it wanted. So I stopped trusting sound and turned downhill, slow and careful steps, keeping my body toward gravity, because downhill always leads somewhere. Roads, water, clearings. The voice called again, then again from another direction. "Marisa?" I didn't answer. The snow got heavier. My legs burned, pushing through drifts that grabbed at my boots. My fingers were numb. I had that awful awareness that one fall could change everything. Then I saw it, a darker line cutting through the white. A plowed turnout, a road. I stumbled toward it and stopped at the edge, waving my arms low so I wouldn't startle anyone into hitting me. Headlights appeared through the snow. The driver slowed, rolled his window down halfway, and looked past me into the trees like he didn't like what he saw. "You okay?" he yelled. I got turned around, I said. My voice shook, which I hated. "Can you take me toward town?" He looked behind me again, then unlocked the door. I got in fast and shut it, like the outside air was alive. The heat hurt my hands, pins and needles so sharp I clenched my teeth. We drove in silence for a bit. Then he said, like it was nothing, "People go missing out here when storms hit. Everything looks the same. You walk the wrong way long enough, nobody finds you." I stared out the window and didn't say anything. Back at my motel, I sat on the bed fully dressed for a long time. Didn't even take my boots off. Later, when my hands worked again, I checked my camera. I wanted proof the day hadn't just been fear and bad decisions. Most of the photos looked normal. Trees, snow, light. But one of the last frames was blurred. And way back near the tree line, there was a dark shape that hadn't been there when I took the shot. At least, not that I'd seen. I don't know if the voices were real. Some days I tell myself it was the storm, wind, my brain reaching for familiarity when everything else disappeared. Other days I remember the tone, how calm it was, how it said my name like it already owned it. And I think about how easily I answered the first time, like empathy was a rope someone could pull. If these stories made you realize how exposed people are when help is hours away, smash that like button, hit subscribe so you never miss the next nightmare, and let me know which story got under your skin. And if you've ever thought, at least nothing happens on the night shift, yeah, about that. Click now to watch 4 really scary night shift stories, because boredom is the last thing you should expect after midnight. Thanks for watching. Stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next nightmare.